Welcome to Veritas Live. I'm your host, Eric Wiggins, and we have an amazing show for you today. As always, we love to know where you're watching from, so let us know in the comments so we can give your country or city a shout out on the show. We also encourage audience participation, so please submit your questions in the comments during the show, and time permitting, we will try to answer them. It is still Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and today we are exploring the future of resiliency. We have the privilege of speaking with two experts on resiliency, Bhooshan Thakar, VP and GM of InfoScale, and Joe D'Angelo, Director of Product Management here at Veritas. Welcome to the show, Bhooshan and Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you back as well, Joe. Okay, our topic today is the future of resiliency. But first, in the spirit of a spooky October, I want to know, what is your favorite scary movie? Mine is Poltergeist. So Joe, what's yours?
Well, I'll stay away from the light for that one. But actually, I think I'm going to have to go with the classic slasher. I'm Team Jason. It's going to be the Friday the 13th series. I admittedly have seen every single one of them. And yeah, that one has sort of a kind of a place in my my heart growing up watching those.
It was a good one. So Bhooshan, what's yours?
When I think of it, I think the one movie that comes to my mind is Chucky. I mean, the scariness of it. I mean, I'm just skipping my heartbeat just thinking about it. It probably one of the scariest movie that I have watched.
Yeah, that one's a pretty scary one too. I didn't want to go anywhere near My Buddy dolls after seeing that because it resembled it too much. So, all right, let's jump into our topic today. So, for enterprise organizations, what are the most significant challenges in ensuring data availability and resilience as these organizations try to find a balance between on-premises and cloud environments? That one's directed to you, Bhooshan.
Sure, thanks. So as I think about the challenges that customers face about data availability or application resiliency in general, uh, you need to start thinking about what are the basic needs for any business. I mean, the businesses need to focus on their core, and as part of that, they need the applications to be simple, repeatable, and low cost. That's how they would want applications, the infrastructure behave. But if you look at the modern digital world, which is the always connected world, how do you guarantee that application is always available? Today, the complexity of resiliency has been the biggest challenge, I would say, because disruptions are common occurrences now. These don't need to be malicious. Even human mistakes, automation mistakes, fat finger, if you will, or natural disasters, they cause massive disruptions. And in the connected world, those disruptions propagate and it takes humongous amount of time and effort to recover from them. Right. So from an organization perspective, I think the complexity is the most critical one. And let me elaborate a little bit further.
Okay.
When you think about application resiliency or data resiliency, you need to think about the application itself, the infrastructure, and the data that and storage that you need to protect to create that resilient business. And when you think about these many moving parts, it naturally creates a siloed strategy, and silos bring complexity. Not applications are made equal. Each application may have its own requirements for resiliency, and throw in the platforms, hypervisors, cloud, what have you, and now your complexity is just multiplying as you think of it, right? So I think that's where the biggest challenge is. When you think about the disasters, it's not if, but it's when. So as you think about resiliency, you should always think about how am I going to recover from it? And that recovery has to be quick, it has to be automatic, and it should be done with minimal loss of downtime and data. So I think just to summarize, the whole complexity of achieving application resiliency in a multi-hybrid cloud environment with so many bespoke requirements and tool sets, I think the complexity stands out as the biggest challenge in my view.
Okay. So Joe, do you see complexity as the biggest challenge, or do you have a different opinion or a different take?
Yeah, I think complexity is a challenge across all sort of manners of the IT ecosystem, especially when we talk about resiliency. I would say one thing to also bear in mind is as the platforms and technologies that we use evolve, so must the way we treat disaster recovery and resiliency. So if you think about the traditional model for most HA and DR architectures, they were heavily focused on infrastructure, and they spent a lot of time looking at how to address what I always like to say colloquially are the fires, floods, fault lines, and fat finger commands. This idea that those are what are the biggest challenges. Well, those challenges have now shifted, and they're becoming this sort of faceless, nameless, cyber attack that does not discriminate. And because of that, so must the means that we choose to employ for recovery, for resiliency, also have to evolve. So I think that's definitely one of the biggest challenges that are facing IT decision makers these days.
Okay. I just want to give a quick shout out to North Carolina and Seattle. Both we have audience members joining in from there. And for those in North Carolina, I hope everything is nice this morning, weather-wise. All right. Joe, given the increasing complexity, as we talked about just recently, of IT environments, how would you recommend organizations effectively balance data protection with performance and cost efficiency?
Yeah, I think that's actually one of the most important questions that we can sort of ponder. And I think it has to do with the fact that so many environments, as they become more, I would say, distributed and more complex, you have to do essential to your responsibilities is to really analyze these environments to understand what are your priorities, right? This idea of a business impact analysis. I don't think enough can be said or can be overstated about how important it is to prioritize where the different recovery measures have to be implemented. There's really no one size fits all approach anymore. You can't look at it as, oh, I have this just sort of generic form of, say, replication, and that's just going to take care of all of my IT infrastructure. In reality, as environments shift and as hyperconverged technologies become more prevalent, as cloud technologies and container technologies become more prevalent, so must the means that you recover those environments have to become more sophisticated. But unless you understand the priorities and apply sort of a right-sized approach to those different workloads, you tend to find yourself in either having to, shoehorn something that might not be cost effective for a tier 2 or tier 3 application, or you may find yourself having to utilize a longer RPO or RTO window for what would be your primary workload. So it's important to understand, again, there's no one size fits all, but through technologies like automation and through some of the different multi-cloud implementations that we're seeing, you can really start to address that head on.
Okay. Bhushan, do you have anything to add to that?
Absolutely. I have a couple of thoughts as I was listening to Joe. I think, as I mentioned, and Joe touched upon it, cyber, it's not if, it's when, right? So while you need to focus on having absolute protection against cyber attack, but it's going to happen. So there has to be ample focus on how am I going to recover from it? I think that recovery warrants absolute focus, and that recovery cannot be manual. I mean, the time that you will take in triage, detecting the failures, and in a complex application environment, it's going to take huge amount of human effort if it is manual, and that is going to cost you a lot of downtime. So how do you automate these recovery processes across a very heterogeneous environment is going to be very crucial to balance the performance and cost, both in terms of operational cost as well as the downtime that you will incur if you have manual aspects.
Definitely, for sure, automation is key. And that actually leads into my next question, which is with the growing adoption of machine learning and AI, how can organizations leverage these technologies to improve their availability at the same time reducing their risk? Bhushan.
Yeah, I mean, AI is so exciting, right? I think the primary reason in my mind that AI is so exciting is the democratization of AI. It is bringing those tool sets to fingerprints, at the fingerprints of people who are not supposed to be experts in AI. You don't need to be an expert to utilize AI services, AI capabilities to optimize your business, right? So from that perspective, I think that democratization is the key enabler. Now, when we start applying that concept in the resiliency world, I think AI has a big role to play. Today, we are talking about reacting to a failure and recovering from a failure, the fastest and the most automated and most reliable way. But AI will start helping us in preventing that failure, becoming more proactive, where you start detecting failures before they happen. by looking at the historical data, hysteresis, analyzing the data, analyzing the systems, identifying in the systems, and so on and so forth. So that starts providing you more proactive approach to resiliency. The other key element in a very complex IT environment is decision making. With
Hmm.
AI, you have enough insights, enough data points to understand exactly what is going on, which should help you enhance your decision making, which will definitely work towards reducing the risk. And the last but not least, I think the biggest and the first use case of AI is to start optimizing operational efficiency. And that will
Hmm.
also play a big role in reducing the overall cost, whether it's automation, automated remediation, optimizing recovery procedures, and so on. So I think we are at the cusp of understanding and using AI in resiliency, but I think it has a big and bright future, more from a proactive approach perspective.
Okay. And Joe, would you want to expand on some of those
Yeah,
points?
yeah. I mean, just to sort of put a point on some of that, I think it's AI is a transformative technology, and there's no denying that. I think when it comes to the resiliency space, it's going to be how we can turn artificial intelligence into actionable intelligence.
Hmm.
Essentially, taking the benefits of AI to and apply it towards the again that business impact analysis that you need to perform, prioritizing and understanding the trends of within inside of your IT ecosystem, learning and being more proactive and predictive in terms of when you're going to need to implement these different measures, whether it's potentially modifying how you store your data, modifying where you store your data, considering the things that might contribute to downtime, whether it's self-imposed or any sort of external factors. So those are the things that we've been, investigating and figuring out how best to implement that. I do see a lot of hyperbole about it out there, and I think that there is a lot of, just slap AI on a sticker and put it on the box, and you say, look, I'm powered by artificial intelligence. I think that there might be a lot of that going around. We're trying to look at it a little bit more from a pragmatic, realistic perspective.
Okay. I kind of want to double click into that. So, what do you think, from Veritas's perspective, is the most important um, challenge to tackle with AI? What are we looking at in terms of that?
Well, I think it's a lot of it has to do with data placement, workload placement, understanding how to, maximize the return on your investment with your infrastructure, right? Some
Hmm.
of the things that we hear quite often is that these HA and DR architectures, while they do solve a problem, they might create a new one, right? And whether it's efficiency and utilization, well, if we can use AI to help drive up that utilization, then the value of this environment becomes more so, as well as shifting the focus away from that infrastructure and resiliency conversation to one of how do I improve my business outcomes, right? So much of what we have been traditionally faced with is how do I prevent failures? Well, with AI, I think it's going to be about how you can achieve success, right? How can I actually improve performance of my workload? How can I actually ensure that my business can be nimble in the event of any type of cyber threat? But more importantly, how can I make a better experience for my end user and for my customers, that does not get encumbered by a lot of these decisions?
Okay, that's great. Bhushan, did you want to add anything to my
Yeah,
follow-up
yeah,
question?
absolutely. And I appreciate Joe's thought there that we need to have a very pragmatic approach when it comes to AI. And I think when I think about it from a pragmatic point of view, I think automation or overall operational efficiency or reducing the operational cost using AI, ML algorithms or technologies, I think that's the first and most logical step in this context, where you look at the whole recovery automation in terms of triaging the failures, detecting the failures, detecting before the failures really result into catastrophic downtime and such. So I think overall automation and operational efficiency that comes with it using machine learning and I think that's a great start for enterprises.
That's great. Okay, let's shift into our future predictions. So, Joe, what do you see as predictions for data availability, and
Yeah.
how can organizations prepare for these upcoming trends?
Yeah, this is an important question and one to really have to think and double click on. And I think that when it comes down to is that tolerance for downtime is going to become less and less and less. And we've seen this trend long before the discussion on AI, long before the discussion on the cloud. We know that as our digital dependency grows, so must then the tolerance for downtime lessen, meaning we have to have architectures that are resilient in the face of any number of increasing and widening threats. But also at the same time, given that the technologies that we're using are becoming more and more disparate in that you've got what amounts to be any number of different choices you can make around hyper-converged, virtual, still a physical world, cloud world. These are all decisions that have to be made. The integration between those technologies is going to have to ramp up significantly, as is the operational side of it. There's going to be absolutely no tolerance and no acceptance of finger pointing anymore. It's not going to be, oh, it's so-and-so's problem. No. It's going to be get together, close ranks, and figure out what's best for the customer. So whether it's a partner vendor that ISV teams and infrastructure teams work with together, they're going to have to come and figure out sort of a root cause. Because at the end of the day, we fail as individuals or we win as a team, right? And I think that's going to be an important consideration. As is more tactically, automation is going to be driving so much of these conversations, right? Doing these operations are all well and good unless you can do so at scale. They are not really that effective. So being able to do it across multiple operating systems, multiple cloud providers, multiple storage technologies, this level of automation is going to be essential. And being able to benefit from that and basically expand on that is going to be key for any software vendor out there. As is the shift, and as I kind of alluded to before, into what's driving disaster recovery decisions. We've had a number of conversations over the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months where customers are actually looking to shift the mindset away from a traditional disaster recovery model to one of, I want to have an active data center where the data inside of it has all been scrubbed, it's clean, it's free from any sort of contaminants or anything that would be considered any sort of malware threat, and that in the event that I have a downtime, I can flip a switch and I can run my business directly from there. That changes the model to which how you go about recovering those environments, how you establish those environments, and it's going to become commonplace as we move forward.
Okay, so Bhushan, do you have anything to add to that
Yeah,
in
just from
terms of
the
predictions?
Yeah, just from the predictions perspective, right? Couple of things. Just to continue on Joe's point about AI, I think data growth is going to be, it's fact of life, and I think it's just exponentially continue to grow with AI as well. But what is going to be more critical, in addition to the availability of that data, is the quality of data. Right? I mean, today we are talking about all these machine learning algorithms. It requires good quality of data and ample data. Otherwise, you are going to have garbage in, garbage out scenarios, and that's not going to be useful, right? So, in addition to the availability, I think quality of that data is important, and customers have to, vendors, enterprises have to consider that fact very closely. I think that's definitely one critical sort of direction or trend. I think the other one that I just want to highlight is the multi-cloud. Multi-cloud is a reality. I think when I think about cloud, I think cloud is an experience. It's a concept where you are providing a simplified user experience. You are providing infrastructure on demand, and it doesn't need to be public cloud. Even your data centers would demand or would require a cloud experience, right? So from that perspective, multi-cloud is absolutely a core strategy, and we are seeing that already happening across many enterprises. So how do we operationally unify across these hybrid multi-cloud environments? I think that is going to be another critical direction as we start looking more.
I couldn't agree more with you, Bhushan, is the operational unification across the cloud, on-prem, and then the hybrid models, essentially bringing the cloud experience from a usability and simplicity and automation, bring that experience on-prem into the data center so that there really is no distinction anymore in terms of how you manage, maintain, provide resilience, locate your data, whatever it may be. There will be uniformity across all of that. It's going to take some time to get there, but I believe that is going to be an absolute necessity moving forward.
All right. Well, some great points, especially, focusing on less on the where your data is and more of how can you serve customers faster and better. I really appreciate all of your predictions for the future, and I hope it's a bright one, of course. So, well, I want to say uh, thank you for joining us today, both of you. I want to give you both a chance for some closing remarks before we close out the show. So, Joe, what do you have to add at the very end for people to think about?
Just that, vigilance is always key here. Knowing that, understanding the workloads and prioritizing them, being able to apply a right-sized approach for what are more modern threats. This idea that cyber attacks and malware attacks today they do not discriminate. It doesn't matter the infrastructure. It doesn't matter. But most importantly, as you do consider a cloud platform, know that with the shared responsibility model, it's essential that you understand that you, as the tenant in the cloud, are responsible for the resiliency of your application. While the resiliency of the infrastructure belongs to the cloud provider, you still have to maintain that, whether it's from a performance standpoint, whether it's from a security threat, or potentially an infrastructure fault that would then have a cascading effect on your business. So again, stay vigilant. But the technologies today, they are quite remarkable, and exciting times for IT right now.
Definitely. Bhushan, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I gravitate towards, again, the complexity that customers and enterprises have to deal with when it comes to resiliency across multiple tiered applications, across hybrid platforms, across multi-cloud, and a bespoke approach will create that will amplify that complexity even further. And how do we avoid that siloed approach? And how do we not get into one size fits all thought process, and figure out a consistent strategy for business and application resiliency? I think that is going to be absolutely crucial. And whether it's application resiliency, data resiliency, or cyber resiliency, at the end of the day, you need to be thinking about how you make your business resilient. And I think at the end of the day, that is the core of what you do. And making that business resilient, I think all of these aspects need to be considered as we move forward.
Definitely. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Really appreciate all your thoughts on the subject of resiliency and availability. And so, if you want to know more about the topics we discussed today, audience, just please check out these resources. The first one is Bhushan's latest blog, The True Threat of Business Downtime, where he goes through all of the things, some of the things actually we discussed today on the show. And Joe has his latest blog, which is Building Resilience in the Next Generation of Business Applications. Thank you both for joining us today. Really appreciate all your thoughts and comments.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having
Thanks for having me, Kevin, Eric. Thank you.
Definitely. And I want to thank you, audience, for joining us today as well. And in honor of CISA Cybersecurity Awareness Month, remember to stay cyber resilient by using strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, and keep your software up to date. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.